Hour with Adam R. Welcome to 3P&R. My guest today is Chris Todd, and the topic is O.J. Simpson. Chris, how you doing, sir?
Hey, Adam. How's it going?
Good. Real brief. Let's just tell people who you are, your background, so this way they have the listeners have an understanding who it is.
Yeah, sure. My name's Chris Todd. I'm an investigative producer, journalist, and author. I'm out here in Los Angeles. I work famous and civilian cold cases, child murders, disappearances. I've been doing about 10 years. Before that, I was a producer in Hollywood for about 20 years, actor, director, writer. And I kind of transitioned into investigations through the true crime space. And I've met some very famous killers, mafia guys. I wouldn't say serial killers, but I've worked with other child murderers and kidnappers. And I wrote 4 books. And I leak and source stories to the media and also to law enforcement. So I do work with federal and local law enforcement. I actually technically am a police informant, and I work for lawyers from time to time and also for family members. Most of my stuff I do is pro bono. I don't charge to work someone's murder case. But yeah, that's my basic background. People can see me on the web. I've been on TV a few times, NewsNation, Court TV, about 7 times this last year. So my name's picked up a little bit recently. But I'm honored to be here. And I like to talk to smaller podcasts and people. I feel that this type of journalism is extremely important.
Agreed. Information, truth, facts. It's the only reason I got into this. I mean, a lot of stuff I've done, involving paranormal, UFOs, true crime. I just want to know. I hate not knowing.
Yeah. I love the UFO stuff. Oh God, I've been diving deep on Dulce and Shasta, and it's fascinating. And I think, we all have a right to know and a need to know the truth. And I think we kind of yearn for the truth. So I'm with you on that. Agreed.
I mean, there's a limitation. Like, let's be honest. A lot of our black projects that are at probably Area 51 and other bases, I usually tell people, leave that alone. We need to have something on our adversaries in the world. We have.
I got you. Yeah, I feel you.
But outside of that, as far as life not being here, I think we're kind of ready. I mean, granted, people are still racist and we're still tribal and we still behave the way we do. I think ultimately we're ready for the information. Maybe not to integrate. I'm not saying let it move into the neighborhood. We're not ready for that yet, but we're ready to know.
Well, and I think that's why you see the UFO stuff coming out with the government. They're starting to acknowledge a lot of this stuff because I think maybe not in our lifetime, maybe my kid's lifetime. I think we will have contact. I think that is the next phase of our human history.
I would agree. And I'm glad you used that word acknowledge because the transparency and the disclosure, that's horseshit. We know it is. The acknowledgement's the best word used. I agree.
Sure.
So in this, we were talking, so I did an episode on OJ some time ago with Norm Pardo. And, there's speculation that serial killer Glenn Rogers was a guy who committed the act himself. I'm not 1,000% behind it. It does sound feasible, but then I started reading into your stuff literally today. I've heard of you before. I was going to reach out to you at some point, but today I started reading more into it, and then now it opens up this whole new realm of possibilities.
Yeah, I mean, the Norman Pardo stuff, the Jason Simpson stuff, look, for Norman Pardo and Glenn Rogers and all these people in that camp and the Jason Simpson with the Bill Deere, look, this is their right. Sometimes I come down too hard on them. A lot of these people are kind of lost. So it's okay. They have an audience. A lot of people write me and ask me about Glenn Rogers and Jason Simpson, and it's fine. We weren't there at the murders. It's hard to convince people, even if I say about Charlie, a lot of people still don't believe that he's OJ's murder accomplice. So, I think I try to appeal to a certain portion of the general public. Not everybody's going to believe what I'm saying. So I've kind of accepted that. And those guys can keep their theories and, do what they do,
Well, that's what makes it good. It's good research. It's good investigative skills. You can't close any doors. Let's acknowledge one thing first. Like, let's get this out. We'll get into who we think it is. OJ himself undoubtedly he definitely didn't do this. If even there, definitely didn't do it alone. Ron Goldman was a big dude with a martial arts background. And according to reports, he fought his attacker hard. So
yes.
Whoever that was that murdered him, they didn't do it easily. That guy put a bit of a beating on someone, based on his knuckles and his elbows. And,
right.
OJ, what do you have? Like a cut on his finger,
Yeah. Yeah. And I also, people talk about this and ask me about Ron and this and the martial arts. And look, what I say to people, I've had some history with fighting and martial arts and MMA. And I'll tell you this right now, fights are won by the angrier person. Usually that's who wins a fight.
Right.
Okay. I know size is a big deal, but if you're relatively the same size as someone, it's not about your size. It's really about who's angrier. And my thing with Ron, with the knuckles, the abrasions, the bruising, yes, he is striking someone. He's striking Charlie. Okay.
Right.
Now, OJ, I do believe he hit OJ. People go crazy when I say this. Some boxers do not cut and swell. I've seen guys get in fights and they don't look like you touched them.
Right.
So OJ could have been punched once and yeah, there's no bruising. Okay. Well, that's just what happens. Not everybody bruises and cuts. So I don't like when we kind of say like OJ didn't get touched. That's not necessarily true.
I agree with you. Here's what I kind of think happened. I think he went there to confront Nicole. I think Ron showed up. Nicole went inside, closed the door, and OJ's outside with whomever it is he was with, and whomever he was with is more than likely in a car waiting, or just down the road or out of sight waiting. He gets in a confrontation with Ron. Like said, probably struck OJ. OJ, being who OJ is, probably didn't want anything to do with that. And then the other person got involved, which whether it be Charlie, whether it be Glenn, or whomever it is, somebody battled this guy. Let's be honest. People fight real hard when they feel like their life's a threat.
Oh,
real hard.
For sure.
Even the weakest person will put a couple of welts on you. So whoever the actual accomplice is, I promise you, he wasn't unremarked. Guaranteed.
Right. Yeah. And Ron has defensive. I just reread the autopsies the other day. Ron has very distinct defensive knife wounds on his hands and his arms. So in between his face, so does Nicole.
Right.
They are putting up their hands as a knife is striking them. Okay. So they know they are being attacked with a knife. So, it's a sad story. And look, I know too much about the case. So you're entitled to your opinion. And I think you're half right there by saying, hey, somebody else is there. You're right. Someone else was there.
Like the guilt I tell this to a lot of people when you watch the anything with OJ in that era, whether it be he's in court, whether it be he's in the news or media, even till before death, there's guilt there because maybe he's not the actual murderer of Ron and Nicole. This other guy very well may have been the actual murderer. I think if I had to look at OJ and guess, I think the altercation started. The other party that was there went on to do what he did, and OJ, being who OJ is, walked away. He's like, I don't want nothing to do with this. But the guilt he has is he's ultimately responsible for the whole thing.
Well, it depends where you want to take this. I mean, there's the truth is the truth.
Right.
Either OJ killed them or didn't. So what I'm saying is, I mean, we'll go into it, but like I had talked to you about before, is I want you to seek the truth.
Right.
That's going to be the best story for you. That's going to give you the most joy in a way, is to know the truth.
Well, here you'll learn about me.
I'm not trying to leave it open-ended. Like, well, maybe he did it. Like, that's not what we're trying to do. But, like I said, it's a slow process. You're not going to know everything that I know, and it's going to be hard to fathom at first. So we'll just take it step by step.
All right, so we'll do it because I have an evolving mind. I'm never, no matter what it is, whether it be ufology, whether it be a murder sign, even in the world of pool, we're talking pre-podcast, I shoot pool. I don't assume to know everything. I will, in fact, even as recently, I was playing a player who was probably lower ranked than I was, but he made a strong point on a certain shot. I took the time and listened because I'm not too proud to learn something new from. I don't care who it is,
Right.
So let's do this.
everybody, even all the investigators, even people like Norman Pardo or Bill Deere, they actually brought up a couple things about the evidence that actually helped corroborate the accomplice. They just didn't know what they were doing.
Right.
So yes, you get, and that's why I write a lot of people and vice versa. I want to hear other people's thoughts too, is because sometimes they say something to me. Oh, that's a good point. Oh, I didn't think of that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you're always going to get things through different POVs. You can learn.
100%. So let's do this. Let's walk through your, so I don't want to call it theory. You're really well read. It's
okay to say theory. I used to be Charlie's partner.
Gotcha.
This is the part you have to understand. I know him.
Huh.
I was involved in his project for years. So that's the first thing you have to,
And that's actually good insight. So let's do this. It's June 94. I believe it's the 12th. I'm fairly certain of that.
30th anniversary coming up.
So let's do this. Let's walk it through this. Let's have you walk through what happened start to finish. I'm going to let you go.
Okay. I mean, how detailed do you want this?
Go detailed, Chris, because I want to learn too. This is part of this whole thing. I kind of treat this like a conversation, treat it like we're having coffee at a place and we're just going through it.
Yeah. And I like kind of a candid setting too. So the way I've said it before is not to try to repeat things I've said before, but I have to be consistent.
Right.
You know what I mean? I can't say, oh, he said something there and now it's different over here. And it's like, okay, so I'm going to stick to my same theory and story.
Right.
Okay. So basically on June 12th, this whole thing was a cocaine extortion by two mobsters. Okay, the first guy's name was Joey Ippolito, who lived in Miami, then relocated to L.A. He was part of the De Cavalcante crime family. Joey used to race the speedboats in Miami with all the cocaine cowboys and Magluta and Falcone and Kramer, and that was a very famous story. They were doing that in the 70s through the 80s. That was a part of the Meyer-Lansky kind of racket that they would smuggle drugs in international waters off of Miami, Cuba, Bermuda, and they would bring it back to Miami. They had the fastest boats in the world. When the DEA, which was in its infancy through some of these time periods, their boats could only go like 55 miles an hour. Literally. Okay? These guys' boats went 80 plus. So this was how they had structured this. It was a brilliant setup, and it's a fascinating story as to how they used these speedboats to smuggle drugs. And everybody knows now, but at the time, they didn't really, it wasn't known. So Joey Ippolito and Charlie Ehrlich are both mobsters that basically get wrapped up with O.J. Simpson in the drug game. And it's hard to confirm when Joey really met O.J. Some people say it's the 80s. I can't hard confirm that. I know for a fact they know each other in the early 90s. Okay.
Well,
to
pause there, many years ago, because I was always interested in the OJ thing since I was a kid. Okay. I did read something about OJ being involved with mobsters, and in fact, there were certain pictures of him at nightclubs in the 80s.
Sure.
So
maybe Turnberry Isle, Aventura.
Yeah, I do said that the minute you said that, it hit a memory on me. I remember reading something about it. But go ahead, continue.
I know a guy in Florida that came forward to us and talked that he knew OJ and Joey together. He's like, I met OJ Simpson through Joey Ippolito. I go, they were still together, weren't they? He goes, yeah, like in 2000, 01, 02. I'm like, son of a gun. He's like, I used to hang out with him. My uncle was kind of a mob guy, owned a restaurant. We knew OJ, we knew Ippolito. They used to be together. He goes, I never even put it two and two together. I go, did you ever Google Joey Ippolito and OJ Simpson's names together? He's like, no. I'm like, do it and watch what spits out. And these guys were still friends way after the murders, man, because they know the dirty secret. They're tied in. All the mob guys have the omerta and the code of silence. So OJ knows Joey's not going to say anything. And to be honest, you can't pinch OJ anyway. He has a double jeopardy. Right. So he could come out tomorrow and go, yeah, I killed Ron and Nicole. What are you going to do about it? Nothing. You're going to do nothing. Right. You see what I mean? So it's a fascinating dynamic of this friendship between Charlie Ehrlich, who's in Miami. He runs a strip club down in Miami. People can go visit him and talk to him. He's not a bad guy. He did a bad thing, okay? He's not a bad dude.
Right.
But he grew up in the mafia. He lived a life in the mob. So did Joey. Joey's dad worked for Sam the plumber, who was very close to Meyer. People don't know that. They don't know the New Jersey mob was so tight. Oh, they weren't one of the 5 families. Bro, they could get you killed in a second. Don't try to disrespect them. Like, they were major. So was the Philly mob. So was the Buffalo crime family. So was Cleveland. So was LA. It wasn't always about the 5 families. And what about the outfit in Chicago? Come on.
Right.
You know? So my point is, on June 12th, Joey Ippolito and Charlie, they set an extortion against OJ, kind of against Faye and Nicole and Keith and Mezzaluna people. They're kind of blending it around. And basically, Charlie shows up to Rockingham and says, we got to get that money. We need to, some people are long on their payments. And Charlie confessed to this on a tape, in a screenplay. He started to write a book. There's a team of producers. They tried to take me to court. They tried to silence me and they lost. Okay. So this is a long journey. This is 7 years. But to stay on topic, the night of the murders, Charlie goes to Rockingham and says, we need to get some money, not in a super rude way, but in an extortive way. Okay. Like, if you don't pay us, this isn't going to go well for you. Okay. You're a celebrity. You could be outed. Do you want people to know you do cocaine? No, you don't. You're fucking OJ Simpson. Relax. Pay the money and we move on. OJ couldn't do it. He's too competitive. He's too angry at Nicole, hates her guts at that moment. They're at cats and dogs with each other. And OJ goes, get in the Bronco. We're going to Nicole's. And he makes Charlie go with him in the Bronco. And they ride to 875 Bundy. And they pull out front first. They look, they see she's home. They say they see candles. And Charlie talks about this too. And we hear music. And they go to the back alley and they park in the back alley. And the two of them enter through the back gate. And when they come through that back gate, OJ had a key that he stole from Nicole. He lied. Or if you just nudged the door, he had a key. And Nicole, I have files that Nicole talks about. Oh, somebody stole my key. I think it's OJ. He was stalking her for a long time. And anyway, so they come through the back gate and there's Ron Goldman and there's Nicole. And there they are. They're talking by the front gate. That's why they're never in the house. That's why they find the bodies with the door open. And they're right by the gate. And they catch 2 bodies.
So, real quick, let's get some context on Charlie. A little bit more about him before you get deeper into what happened, so people understand who Charlie is, and they can kind of put 2 and 2 together with him.
Charlie Ehrlich is a mobster from New York City who then relocated to Miami in his teen years. He had one of his family members owned a restaurant in Miami. He moved down to Miami and he met all the mob guys through his, I'm not going to say this person's name, a family member. When he went to Miami, he now lived in Miami. He went to Colombia. That's why he's in his confession. He talks about going to Colombia. I was there for 6 months, and a Jewish mother, this was fodder for her. Where you been? Because she didn't know where he was.
Right.
He's a Jewish guy. They're not allowed to be made in the mob, but the Jews and the Italians created the mafia together. Okay? They are together. So basically, and Charlie had a life of crime, cocaine smuggling, drug smuggling, quaaludes. He got busted by Nancy Grace in 1985 for quaalude smuggling cocaine. He had assault weapons in a safe. He was given a 23-year sentence by Nancy Grace.
That's right. She was a prosecutor. People forget
because
that.
He's in Atlanta. He lives in Atlanta. He had a dealing operation coming out of Atlanta. So he got pinched there. He was put away. He was given a 23-year sentence, and he served about 7 years. So he serves from like 87 almost to 94. So when are the murders? 94 in June.
Right.
Right? 4 or 5 months, 6 months, I guess, into 94. It's very hard to confirm when Charlie got out of jail. And this is what he does on purpose. You don't know when he got out. So they try to say, oh, I got out. Oh, I was still in jail during the murders. they leave that as an out for him. If anybody ever knocked on his door, LAPD or anybody, well, I still was in jail. I was on parole and I had to report to house duty and all this stuff he talks about. It's mob guys are liars. I mean, that their whole life is a lie. So basically, Charlie was a drug smuggler, drug dealer, and ran a crew. Most of his crew was Colombians. He talks about that, how they were Colombian. They call them dark-skinned males in the screenplay that he wrote. And in his tape, that's what they call them. They're trying to tell you they're Colombians. So he was doing that. And then Joey said to him, hey, man, come work for me. When he got out of jail, I'm running this thing in L.A. I got a good thing going with the celebrities. I need a ghost. I need somebody to run the drugs, drive the cars, fly in. And he did, and his crew did that. And that's how he met O.J. Simpson. He met O.J. about 3 months before the murders. He didn't know O.J.
Now, real quick, the photos you sent me on Messenger, these are Charlie and O.J.?
Yeah, I'm not looking at what I sent you, but yeah, there's photos of Charlie and O.J., absolutely.
Yeah, I'm seeing them now. And I'm telling you now, based on what I'm seeing for what they're wearing, it's period correct for 94.
Well, no, they're not. That's not 94. The photos, I don't have a picture of Charlie in LA in 1994. The pictures you're seeing are of him, and I think the year is probably, it's like 99 or like 2000.
Oh, this is after okay.
Oh, yeah, man, bro, if I had a picture of Charlie Ehrlich with O.J. Simpson in 1994, it'd be game over.
Yeah.
There's no phone. Remember, there's no cell phones in 94. There's no camera phones.
Right.
Okay. Mob guys don't take pictures of themselves with their drug dealers and their clients.
100% right.
Okay. There's I do know someone that supposedly has a photo of Charlie with OJ in 94 at Rockingham. I've never seen it. I'll be honest. I've never seen it. They won't let me see it. Of course, all the people on OJ are super cryptic and deceptive. And, well, I know Charlie was with, I got a picture. Well, let me see it. Oh, I can't show you. Okay. Well, I don't need the photo anyway, because I know the guy was there.
Right.
Not only by him saying he was there, the evidence shows he was there. And OJ told you there was a guy named Charlie there. If you read his book, chapter 6.
Here's another fun fact.
Yeah.
With them looking to pay the victims of the Brown family and the Goldmans, I didn't notice till just now, but OJ, and when you say mob and you think in terms of who he's hanging around with, OJ had his cash in a ring of businesses, like cash deal businesses, to hide his proceeds. Right. This is public fact. They didn't know the names of the businesses because they were considered to be private entities. But when you hear that, you can only imagine that's exactly how the mafia would operate. A string of businesses. Well,
and also, in 1994, it's really, sometimes I don't even like talking about the mafia angles too much, because when you say O.J. Simpson and then you say mafia, it's like oil and water. They don't really go together. It doesn't make sense. So I try not to harp on the mob things too much unless I'm doing an interview that is mafia themed.
Right.
But my point is, OJ knew Ippolito. He met Charlie. OJ was a big cokehead. Okay. He was doing cocaine since the 70s. He was dating a lot of beautiful women. A lot of the athletes, that's what they did, man. They did drugs. They dated beautiful women. They cheated on their wives. They had multiple girlfriends. I know a lot of these guys, man. I've known professional athletes. They all do that. Okay. So do actors. They can get away with it. No one's going to, they live a kind of charmed life.
Right.
Okay. They don't live like you and I.
Right.
Okay. I don't have 3 model girlfriends and $1 million cash in the bank. Like that's we don't live like that. These people do. At Aventura, Turnberry Isle, in Hollywood, in LA, at the clubs and the private, memberships and even the golf courses. They talk about the coke at the golf course, and they bust guys in the locker rooms with coke. Like, so it's all, the word is bacchanalian. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but
yeah, because you had a run in Hollywood too, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I didn't never live like that.
But you've been around it to understand what that life is like.
Oh, I know, dude. I know things that make your head spin. I know secrets about people that you wouldn't even believe. So what I'm saying is, so Ippolito and Ehrlich, they set this thing, but only Ehrlich goes to Rockingham at about 10 p.m. on Sunday night. And OJ freaks out and he overreacts and, oh, fuck Joey. This is bullshit. I just saw Joey. What do you guys? Because OJ's like kind of introducing the athletes and the celebrities to Joey for the coke deals and the drugs. Bro, half the town of LA was on cocaine. Okay. You got to put your head in the situation. They're all on drugs. Heroin, coke, weed, booze, pills, pick one. Pick one.
Right.
So they're all like, and remember, drugs were highly illegal in 1994. It's not like today where mushrooms are legal. Hey, you want a chocolate bar with psilocybin in it? Here, go to the store right there. Go inside. Like
true.
It's not like that, dude. Like, this is 94. Weed was illegal. If you smoked a joint, you went to jail for possession. And if they want to smack you with a distribution charge, they'll slap you on in Nevada for having a seed for 20 years. They used to say that on the billboard. You have as much as a seed, you're doing 20 years. It's like, what is this, Nazi Germany? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, that was that 3 strikes you're out law in 90s.
That's in California.
Yeah, and there's people still in prison today for weed.
Yes, for drugs, for weed. Ben Kramer's in jail for life for weed.
It's crazy. They
thought he murdered people, which he probably did, but they didn't get him on murder. They got him on weed out of Illinois, and they gave him life. Jesus. Think about that. Life for dealing weed.
Now you can go get it at a store at the corner.
You can now go to the grocery store, the dispensary, and buy as much weed as you want. Okay? This is how stupid we are as people.
It really is crazy.
And not to mention all the black people or African Americans or whatever you want to say, put in jail, incarcerated, lives ruined because of the drug war. I'm a big fan of Gary Webb, man. Gary Webb exposed the CIA cocaine story. That was important. They destroyed families. They destroyed communities in Los Angeles, South Central, Compton, Crenshaw, Inglewood. They destroyed people's lives. What about all the politicians that do cocaine? What about them? Oh, nothing happens to them. About Hunter Biden. What happens to him? Nothing.
Yeah,
what happens to a black guy on the street? 10 years.
They find new things in the news to bypass it. That's what they do.
But you know what I'm saying.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm big on the drug war being a travesty of injustice. I am. I live part of that story. I know a lot about it. And, anyway, I don't want to go off track.
Yeah. We'll touch that later on. So let's get, we're June 12th, 94. OJ pulls up with Charlie to Nicole's house. They find Nicole and Ron speaking.
By the gate, they go in there, a fight ensues. They start arguing. Nicole and OJ want to kill each other in general. First off, they're in a very bad place at this time. Very bad. Dark. Bad. And Nicole swings on OJ, and then OJ wallops her in the face. She's knocked down. And at that point, Ron's like, oh, shit. And Ehrlich pulls the knife out. Charlie didn't know that OJ even had a knife really at first. OJ pulls the knife out, and now that's it. They kill Goldman first. So, and then Nicole is killed by OJ Simpson, not by Charlie. I don't believe Charlie's never confessed to killing Nicole, and I don't believe Charlie would stab Nicole Brown Simpson.
But he definitely got Ron.
Absolutely. There's 2 knife wounds on Ron. That's testified by the coroner. That's testified by Shapiro and Cochran and Scheck and Bodden, and all of them have to acknowledge that there are 2 knife wounds on Ron Goldman.
In your opinion, do you think when Charlie started working Ron after Nicole is deceased, he just probably left, right? Left the guy there?
No, Charlie and OJ are on Ron while Nicole's down. It takes them a couple minutes. Whether Nicole gets up, possibly. Does she try to jump in the fight? Maybe. Does she get walloped again? Possibly. Does OJ turn on Nicole and whack her a couple times with the knife on the neck when she's hit, like either from the front? She has defense wounds on her hands, like she's sticking up her hands and she's getting stabbed. Remember, you have two killers. They can bounce from one to the other.
Right.
And Ron is trapped in this, they call it a killing cage. He's trapped in this corner. The fence is literally, he's fenced in. He's blocked in. That's why they find the blood on the fence. He's slamming into the fence. So he's trapped. And after he's dead, basically, I think, well, we'll just say Charlie, is trying to get out of there, but OJ wants to finish off Nicole, so he does. And then Charlie's like, let's get out of here. Let's get out of here. That's why they have two sets of footprints, shoe prints, a size 12 and a size 10.5. These shoe prints are exiting towards the back gate. Why are there two sets of shoe prints? I thought OJ was there by himself. This is what everyone started to fight over this in court. Yeah. People don't know that unless they watch the whole trial.
Yeah, I'm looking at the photos now, and there's definitely two different size prints. I think they made that. In fact, they made a note of that here in this photo.
They did. There's a parallel line. Charlie's is a parallel line. They call it the PLP, parallel line print that Dr. Henry Lee circles, writes PLP next to it, because Barry Scheck says, well, what do you want to call it? It's a parallel line. Let's call it the PLP. Sounds good. OJ has a Z shape. He's a size 12. That's the Bruno Mali. So if you have a size 12 Z shape and you have a 10.5 parallel line, why are you thinking there's only one person there? And then you find a hat in the Bronco that doesn't fit OJ. It's a 7 1/8. OJ had a huge head. They called him large head as a kid. He wears like an 8.5. So if you find this hat that's a 7 1/8 on the floor of the Bronco in the front seat, driver's side, why do you not use that at the trial? Because it's not OJ's. And I talked to one of the lawyers recently from OJ's team. He's still alive. A couple of the guys are still alive. And he goes, Chris, I don't understand. Where'd this hat come from? I go, dude, you're the lawyer from the case. I know, but why didn't we use it? Why are you asking me? What's going on? He's like, I can't wrap my head around this. This is one of his lawyers at the trial.
I'm going to tell
like
you.
80 years old.
I'll tell you now. I don't. Something about OJ's team was very divided. I don't know if it was Cochran that divided them, but you could see on the face when he got the not guilty verdict. Right? Yeah,
right.
You could see Kardashian's face, and he didn't look pleased.
Right. Yeah.
It's almost like he wanted OJ to go down. You know, I rewatched that so many times from the moment they gave verdict till like an hour thereafter, and Kardashian looked just distraught over it.
Look at Bob Blazier, too. Blazier kind of looks, he's got his hands on his hips, and he kind of looks around, too, like, what the heck? Cochran hugs him and yells. He literally yells, yes. Like and Shapiro, Shapiro's happy, too, but Cochran visibly yells and hugs O.J. Simpson.
Yep.
Okay? I think what you're bringing about Bob Kardashian is a good point. To me, because I know a lot about Kardashian that I don't think we'll get to today, but I think he was in shock. I don't think he wanted to see OJ go to jail. I think he knew the gravity of the situation was like in his head for a moment. He's like, he got away with it. Like, this is going to change. The country's going to go crazy. So I think it was like a somber moment for him. Why would he celebrate? You know what I mean? Like, this could be bad. Remember, he lives in LA too.
Right.
Like, he has to deal with that for the rest of his life.
And you could see him when he was getting in the car. There's footage of him getting in the car, and he's just sitting in the car staring into space.
Oh, right.
In either disbelief, shock, or just like, wow, how did this guy get away with this?
He's shocked. There's the footage of OJ online. He's at the house after OJ had a small party when he was acquitted. Everybody came to the house.
Right.
Kardashian's there. They're looking in a mirror, and he's looking at OJ through the mirror, and OJ goes, the prosecution let the real killer get away.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Kardashian's just nodding his head like, yeah. Bro, Kardashian's in the moment. He's in the presence of greatness. He is seeing a man who just beat the system and is literally one of the most recognizable faces in the world.
Right.
And he is going to be a part of this.
mind blowing.
It's mind blowing. It's like euphoria. Kardashian is just trying to wrap his head around. You can see the way he's looking. First of all, Bob Kardashian worshipped O.J. Simpson. Okay, they met at a tennis court at Rothschild's house. Okay, that's how they met. They didn't meet in college. Even though Kardashian was the water boy or he was like the manager of the football team, he didn't know O.J. He actually met him at a tennis court, and they became friends forever from that moment. So he always looked up to O.J. And look, you got to give Bob Kardashian credit. You know, he befriended a black man in the 70s, and this was, you know, racism was different. It was electric. There was voltage there. You know what I mean?
In a very
vitriol.
In a very predominantly white country club too.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I remember reading
and
about
Beverly
that.
Hills, Calabasas, and wherever. I mean, he was in Encino when he was divorced. When OJ went to his house, that story, he was actually in Encino. But you know, look, it's a fascinating story. Even Kardashian with OJ, they have their own history. You could probably write a book just about them two together themselves. And I think Kardashian was probably torn also about what should he feel. You know, OJ, they called him Uncle OJ. They knew Nicole very well, and he murdered Nicole. So think about these dynamics of, you know, their auntie was murdered by this man. And now we're going to bring OJ around Kim and Chloe, you know? So it's just, there'll never be anything like it again. But just sticking with the murders, then, you know, they escaped through the back gate. They stripped their clothes, stripped their shoes. That's why there's no shoe prints out in the road anymore. It just kind of disappears. They strip their clothes, get in the Bronco, and they race back to Rockingham. And we can go over that. There's a lot of details about how they get away and how they sneak back to the property without anybody seeing the Bronco.
Yeah, you know, it would help to have someone who was involved with the criminal life to understand and do that. Because I don't think OJ would have did that on his own accord. I think someone had to instruct that.
You mean the getaway?
The whole thing, stripping your clothes down, making sure you're not getting blood everywhere. I mean, even the blood.
Well, I don't know. I mean, OJ, you know, look, I think OJ was a bright guy. You know, he was in a gang as a kid. He talks about beating up kids, and when he was 15, and we chased these kids off a hill, and we had to throw rocks at them. I doubt they threw rocks at them. OJ was a tough kid. He played football. He played in the NFL. These are the biggest, meanest, fastest dudes in the world at the time. You don't think OJ had a mean streak in him?
Sure, he did, but the idea to it's one thing for if it's premeditated, where he was going there with no doubt in his mind, I'm going to kill these people tonight. Like,
there's no premeditation. This is a spontaneous, absolutely
right. So in that heat of the moment, to have the presence of mind to strip down your clothes and wipe down blood and then escape, you know, that has to be the influence of someone who's experienced with that.
Well, and that's why he tells you in this Judith Regan interview, he says, I looked down at my shoes and I just knew I had to take them off. And then they're like, well, you didn't take your socks off. I didn't see any blood on my socks, so I didn't take them off. So he took his shoes off because he sees the shoe prints, the bloody shoe. Look, I mean, come on, man. He's an adult. He's 46 years old. He just murdered two people. I'm sure he's in, you know, flight mode right now instinctually.
Right.
You got to get the hell out of there. And he's got to do something like he's covered in blood. His shoes are covered in blood. So I don't think it takes too much, you know, I don't think you have to be criminally minded to be like, I need to take my shoes off. Like he strips his clothes. He tells you he strips his clothes in the book, in the interview.
And you'd spoken to Charlie, right? What is Charlie's take, or what is he alleged to or said anyhow?
There's two Charlies, right? So there's the Charlie that came forward in 2017 to a friend of mine, and that's how I ended up meeting him and the producing team. There was a team of people. That Charlie in 2017 wanted to come forward. He wanted to make a movie. He wanted to do Goodfellas, tell his story. Him and the mob. He's Henry Hill. He did crazy shit, rode the boats, and Joey threatened to kill him and kidnapped him and put a gun in it, and he wanted to make a movie and make some money and get it off his chest. He held this secret for so long, and we respected that. So that's why he was recorded, and that's why a script was written, and that's why it was shopped. And I shopped his freaking script for him, and I shopped his tape, and I brought producers from major studios to him and to his producers. And they tried to snake me, and they didn't want me to be in the deal. I'm like, why are you using me then? Well, a lot of people in Hollywood, and you did Natalie Wood, and true crime, and okay, then don't be shady, dude. They tried to bar me off the lot one day. I'm like, what are you guys doing, dude? I introduced you to these producers. Well, they don't want you to show up to the meeting. Like, what the fuck are you guys talking about?
I could already tell you why. I could tell right away why.
What?
They wanted to sensationalize it, maybe add a little shit to it, and you wanted facts and truth, and they weren't willing to do that.
Right. Partly, yeah. Well, and Hollywood was afraid of me for a while, so I had this reputation where they were like, "Oh, this guy, don't let this guy in the office. He's too aggressive. He sends us weird emails." I'm like, "Yeah, what about Harvey Weinstein and Randall Emmett?
Right?
How'd that work out with them? You think those people were good people?
Not by a mile."
You know what I mean?
No, I know.
They used to tell me I couldn't go to the meeting because I sent people rude emails. You just think about what they're saying. It's just so stupid.
Hollywood in general just has a strange double standard, man.
They have a double standard. They're total hypocrites and they're bullies. You mix those things all together, it's a freaking toxic cocktail. And but anyway, my point is, so I brought them producers, I brought them financiers, press, media, reporters. Then they wanted more money. Then they pull back. Well, we can't say. They're like, wait, did this guy murder somebody or not? It's like, well, no comment. So then the producers would start feeling that you're being shady about it. You're not really telling the real story. So then, is this guy a felon? We're going to pay this guy $5 million. Yeah, $5 million. How much you pay Henry Hill? What's the problem? Did you do The Irishman at Netflix for $160? You did. And people didn't even believe Frank Sheeran. So why'd you pay him? He says he murdered Jimmy Hoffa.
Right.
There's no statute of limitations on murder. Why are you paying him?
Yeah.
Again,
Henry Hill made
Hill
made a lot of money. A lot. Because he made a stink about that movie afterward, too. And they made sure.
Yeah, when Henry Hill came to you and told you about Jimmy Burke, right? And Tommy DeSimone, whatever his real last name was, and that's actually from the LA mob, his family. What's the problem? They had to go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said criminals can sell their stories. They had to quash pretty much the Son of Sam rule that, they can't benefit from their crime. The Supreme Court voted, I think it was 8-0. I don't know if that number's right, but they voted almost unanimously. They can sell their stories because if it helps solve crimes, if it brings closure to families, if it benefits the public, for these people like Sammy the Bull, like Henry Hill, right, to say what happened to some little girl's father, they can do it. They can speak. If they serve their time in jail, right, they paid their debt to society. They can sell their stories too.
Whatever removes the question mark, yeah.
They had a court case over Goodfellas. You can look it up. It all went all the way to the Supreme Court because people were getting pissed. Why are we paying Henry Hill? A lot of people got killed around him after that Lufthansa heist. Remember that? There was multiple people got murdered.
Yeah.
And so, my point is, it's when we took the story and mixing OJ into it, I think was the problem too. If it was just a regular mob story, it probably would have worked. But when the producers and executives are reading on page 50 or hearing part of this confession tape, we're riding in a white Bronco at 10:30 p.m. at night on June. What's going on? What's going on? Well, he's with OJ. Well, do you guys tell the police this? No, we're not telling the police. Why would we tell the police? They don't care. It's a double jeopardy.
Right.
They're going to laugh at us on the phone, which they did. Oh, well, isn't this case open? Not really.
No.
Why do you think the case is open?
There's a huge black eye at LAPD for that whole thing.
Yes.
They would prefer, and they wouldn't try to fight it. They wouldn't want to acknowledge it. They would prefer to not deal with it, period. Because that was a
You think they would replay the Mark Furman tapes?
Oh God,
to a jury?
How damaging was that? That was terrible.
Oh yeah, that's how OJ got off. The LAPD is the reason OJ got off. Yes, a mostly black jury with a jury that was angry. Sometimes you call it jury nullification when the jury goes against even the evidence. I think they call it jury nullification. So you almost had that here where the jury's like, there's so much evidence that OJ's guilty, right? But we don't care. We're not down with the way the evidence was processed. We're not down with Mark Fuhrman using the N-word. We're not down with him talking about planting evidence on black people. No, 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 no.
And he had a history that wasn't isolated. He had a history of that.
Oh, dude, they had to settle a case right before. A guy had to teach me this. Luckily, I met some very interesting OJ people over the years. A guy had to tell me and show me. He goes, he planted a knife on a guy, and they settled the case for $100,000 right before the trial. I go, I didn't know that. They go, yes, and I looked it up, and it did happen.
You know, I sat in a Zoom call. I sat in a Zoom call with two homicide detectives, right? And without telling them it was the OJ case, I just basically laid out the location, and they gave me to run through how it should be performed, what they would be doing. And when I read verbatim what took place there, they were mortified. And one of them figured out one of them figured out immediately it was the OJ thing. But the point was that was such a botched crime scene. Everything went wrong there. They had people walking through it. They had forensic techs walking through, no gloves. And Fuhrman, for whatever, it wasn't even the guy, from what I'm reading, wasn't even assigned to that case. He put himself on it somehow.
Well, he was the first detective to arrive. With his boss was Ron Phillips. He came with Brad Roberts. They were the only detectives. Lang and Van Natter come at like 4:15 in the morning. So Fuhrman and his little cronies, they're actually there for like almost 2 hours. There's other beat cops there. You're right. They're trampling the crime scene. One of the cops went in the house, saw the picture of OJ on the mantle, was like, you know what I mean? It's like a horror movie, dude. They're just trying to figure out what's going on. Like, whoa, there's a picture of OJ Simpson. What is this? But there was way more than just trampling, dude. They planted evidence. Fuhrman planted the glove behind Rockingham. Basically, it's proven by Steven Singular. If you really read his book, Legacy of Deception, I know a lot about the story and the angle with that. That's crazy. The blood, the bag, and the stick. They find this stick with blood on it by the Bronco at Rockingham. They think Fuhrman's picking up the glove with the stick. He's moving it around. It's insane.
The drop of blood by the car door, that was the funniest part. The drop of blood.
Well, there's one of the best, when they find EDTA in the blood, Barry Scheck confronts Dennis Fung with a picture that shows the back gate having multiple drops of blood that they took 2 weeks later. When Barry Scheck shows them the photo on June 13th, when they're taking the photos at the crime scene, that blood droplet is not there. So he shows him, he goes, "What's this, Mr. Fung?" And he's just like, "Ugh."
Yeah.
Why would you collect blood at a crime scene 2 weeks later when every reporter, bro, it wasn't even taped off the crime scene after. It was hosed down at like 4 p.m. I know who hosed it down. There's a friend of Nicole's.
It was like a freak show for a long time.
It was the worst. Yeah, and they drew OJ's blood, and Van Natter carried it to the crime scene instead of booking it into the lab when he was at the frickin' Parker Center or wherever he was. He didn't even put it in the thing. He took it with him in the car and drove back to the crime scenes. And that's why they ask him in the trial, and they can never figure out who'd you give the blood to. They never figured it out, even to this day.
Yeah, the chain of custody was so bad. When you watch the trial, and I was a kid watching this, and even as a kid, I was like, what the hell is going on? No one seems to know what's what. Nothing's numbered adequately. Right. The best part of it's almost like Fuhrman worked for the defense team. It's what it felt like to me.
Almost. Yeah.
I mean, the guy did everything he could possibly do to botch it. It was terrible.
Andrea Mazzola went on the stand and got annihilated. She was like the second in charge of the crime scene. She was a criminalist. She only worked there like a year. They asked her, "Did you read the manual to how to process a crime scene?" She goes, "No." And you can just feel everybody in the courtroom like,
cringe,
what? Like just the air goes on. Like, did she really just say that?
And then here's the killer part. This is the part I remember.
Well, no, I want to say this part real quick.
Good.
So, and then you say your piece. So she says that, everyone's like gasps, like, "Why didn't you read it?" "I don't know." They're like, "You're in charge of the crimes." This is Peter Neufeld. He's even confused, right? Colin Yamauchi goes and testifies that when he's processing the glove, he pops a vial of OJ's blood, and it's either the victim's blood or OJ's blood in a vial, right? And when he pops it open, blood shoots out and lands on the glove. So he testifies that he spills blood on the glove. Like, it's insane.
And the worst part of that is coming to that conclusion. And I thought it was like 2002 when I revisited. There was some sort of special about it in 2002.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember thinking, did they put the glove they had in evidence that OJ tried on? Was that the accomplice's glove and that's why it didn't fit? Did no one come to that conclusion? Did no one even think of that? It's OJ.
No, they're OJ's gloves. The reason they were so tight, and he's wearing a rubber glove under it.
Right.
They shrunk these. They freeze it and then unfreeze it. They're isotoner driving gloves. They're already tight.
Oh, and it's leather.
If they just shrink, right.
That's the what were they thinking doing that? What the fuck?
If they just shrink a little bit, right? And that's why Bob Shapiro had said, he goes, I tried them on. They didn't even fit me. OJ had the biggest hands I'd ever seen. I knew another guy who met OJ and goes, when I shook this guy's hand, I swear to God, I never saw someone's hands so big ever. And I was like, wow. So Shapiro knew they wouldn't fit. That's why they didn't object to it.
Yep.
Okay. They could have objected to that. OJ did not have to try those on. And they warned Darden not to do it at the DA's office because he was hinting he was going to have him try on the gloves. They were desperate, dude.
Wow.
And OJ did some acting. Look, OJ did some acting too. Like he's trying to pretend to, what do you think he's going to do? You think he's just going to slip them on? Oh yeah, look, they fit. Like, of course
that's the other hard part too. That guy was he took method acting courses to become a better actor.
He was just slick and charismatic. Dude, the guy's a great liar. The guy's lied to Ruby Wax, to Chris Myers, to Ross Becker. Go watch his Ross Becker interview. It is fascinating. Watch that. It happened right after the acquittal. It's on YouTube. Ross Becker, OJ Simpson. He is a genius. Okay? He rolls in his little sweater, and he just gives you an excuse after excuse, and you believe him. Oh, they should have tested this blood. It wouldn't have come back to me. It was an allele. How does this guy know what an allele is? I didn't even know what that was. Yeah, it's like, dude, the guy remembers everything from the trial. He didn't fall asleep in the trial. He paid attention. It's fascinating.
I did notice that through the entire trial, no matter who it was that spoke, he took note. He was involved, bro. I would have fell asleep, bro, for 10 months. Oh, easily.
I would have tapped out.
Easily. So let's go to Charlie now. So we now know Charlie was approached to potentially do a movie, and then they discover OJ may be part of it, and they start red flagging it. Does Charlie ever say or admit that he was one of the people involved with the murder of Ron Goldman?
Yes.
What was his account of it?
It's on the tape. I've never heard the whole tape.
Right.
They only hear parts of it. He confesses. I mean, look, I highly doubt that he confesses to stabbing Ron Goldman. I mean, who would say that on tape? You go to jail, right?
Right.
So I believe, and through another source, I know this has been going on for years. I know someone that did hear other parts of the tape. I don't believe he says he stabs Ron Goldman. He admits to being with OJ, ridding evidence, getting rid of the knives.
Right.
He tries to say there's one knife. There's actually two. He's very deceptive. He's a fucking liar. He's a 5-time convicted felon. Right. You got to remember, he's not going to tell you the whole story, right? Okay. So he admits to ridding evidence, being in the Bronco, being with OJ, that he did it. He's Charlie from Chapter 6. He's Charlie from the Judith Regan interview. Yes, he admits to being, let's say, an accessory. He's a witness to the murder. On tape, on the record, he says it.
Damn. I mean, yeah. I really didn't look. I have to look deeper into that. Because I remember. And
your next question will be, well, why don't they release the tape? Well, you know what the real question should be? Huh. Why don't the LAPD go get it?
Again,
that's the question.
After that blunder, they want nothing to do with it. He could be on tape with the knife, 6 of his friends confirming he did it, and they're still not going to want anything to do with that. That was a huge blunder. No, I feel you.
I'm glad you say that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a black eye in them, and they would prefer just it not be spoken about rather than confronted ever again. Because they look like idiots. It was the most.
I'm glad you see that, Adam, because most 90% of the people I talk to and deal with, none of them can get over the fact of like, why won't the LAPD do anything? Why won't robbery homicide do anything? You met with them, right? They know you. They drove to your house. I'm like, yeah, you actually are one of the first people to get it right away. You're already like, no.
Yeah, there's no shot they're going to want to deal with that. That's like the Boulder police with the John Benet Ramsey.
John Benet.
What a bunch of morons these guys are. They didn't even bother. That nothing about that crime made sense to me. And I could wholeheartedly say the father definitely didn't do it. I mean, why would they tell the father, go look through the rest of the house?
You should watch my John Benet Ramsey interview. I actually did a John Benet thing, but we could talk about that another time.
We definitely will schedule one for that, because that's got I am on the cusp of kind of figuring out what really took place with that. We'll talk off podcast.
You watch my interview on Cinemills TV on YouTube. Cinemills, Cinemills, and you may not agree with me, and that's okay. A lot of people get very emotional about the John Benet case, but I said my piece. I did a deep dive on that. I lived that story too, man. I'm 50 years old. I lived all these 90s cases: Cobain, OJ, John Benet, Biggie, Tupac. You feel me?
Yes.
I lived these.
I did. Yeah. I did a Cobain episode recently with Jason White from the First 48, Leslie Gillieri. She's a crime writer. And
you want me to tell you a little quick thing about Cobain?
Yeah, pray tell.
So Cobain was murdered.
I agree, 100% agree.
His suicide was staged.
I couldn't listen. The guy had how much heroin on board? It's impossible.
1.52 milligrams per liter.
It's impossible to manipulate a pencil, let alone. And here's a kicker, that one too. It's not even off subject. I like we're talking about it. His non-dominant hand was on the trigger, which I as a test. So between you and I, as a test, I had some friends come over. I got a broomstick. Said, hey, if you were gonna off yourself with a shotgun, show me. Every one of them put their dominant hand on the trigger. Every one of them. So what makes him different? And then
I got
it off.
Something better for you. Well, no, if you know a lot about Cobain, I'm not supposed to say some of this, but I will say it because your audience is a smaller audience and you can use this however you want to use it.
Right.
Kurt Cobain was murdered. His suicide was staged. There were 7 people at his murder. 7. Wow. 7 people were there.
Yeah, I just don't doubt it. It would because it would take that many, right? Because they got to position.
I'm not saying they all staged it. There were technically, I won't say how many killers there were, but what I'm saying is there were multiple people who were there. They covered it up. You can kind of Google it and you'll figure out a few of the people. A couple of the names you will not ever find. I know who all the people are, and it's sad. Kurt was made the poster boy for suicide. People killed themselves. Other kids killed themselves after Kurt. I actually know someone that knew somebody that did it because of Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, yeah, remember blah, blah, blah. I'm like,
that was a huge trend back then. That did happen. That's fact. People literally. There was
like 15 people who killed themselves.
It's insanity. Yeah. And the truth is, when it comes to that, when you consider all the facts of that case, definitely more than one person had to stage it. Undoubtedly, you got to move his body around, and someone's got to hold it. The whole thing stunk. Even when I was a kid and I learned about it, till now, it still doesn't sit right. None of it does. You know what the biggest smoking gun that it was staged? There's a couple of smoking guns that it was staged, but the main one, these guys were all smackheads. They're all heroin addicts and junkies and dealers and rock stars that were at Kurt's house. Okay, so the smackheads. They put the shell on the wrong side of the ejection chamber. Yes, that's right. True. So they didn't make the connection that it was on the opposite side. So it should have shot. It was an auto-loading shotgun. When you fire it, the shell ejects. Right. Okay. It's on the wrong side. Yep. Right? Like it's literally 3 feet away from the correct side. It's not possible that it would eject there. It's not possible at all. Yeah, I covered that exact, because I remember reading through all the case files before we did the episode, and that was that stood out to me largely. Then the amount of heroin in his body. So what I did is I watched videos. This is terrible, but I was watching recovery videos for heroin addicts and people that are on heroin, and just watching them on small amounts. Just try to get through simple tasks. Like they had one guy with crayons, and they're asking him to write a sentence, and he just could not perform that on a
Right.
on a smaller amount. And the amount he had on board, he
had 1.52 milligrams per liter. Okay, a normal heroin junkie could OD at like 0.35.
And so people understand too, heroin's not something that's gradual. It just hits you. It's
right
not,
away.
Right.
Kurt was dead. He was dead within 3 minutes. He's dead.
And so they used that shotgun to stage his suicide.
His suicide, correct.
Just messy. Because there's a lot of names they didn't want involved with it. They didn't top it off.
The cops did the worst investigation. They called it a suicide by 3 p.m. They had no toxicology report. They didn't test the gun for fingerprints. Then the fingerprints come back non-existent. There's no fingerprints on the gun after 2 weeks. So it was obviously wiped down.
You're right.
They find no fingerprints on the red pen that is supposedly stabbed in the plant with the suicide letter. Why isn't Kurt's fingerprints on that?
Yeah.
Why aren't his fingerprints on the gun?
How did he write that?
Metal.
How did he write that letter, man? Here's the other thing too. They destroyed the gun. Never in history in law enforcement in any crime, whether it be suicide or homicide.
They cremated Kurt too. I think he was cremated.
They destroyed the house not long after. They just erased it all. That takes money to do that. And if you look, if you listen to the episode I did, there's a lot of corruption in the law enforcement in that area. I mean, when you have rock stars with millions of dollars to play with, it's not a far-fetched idea for them to say, "Hey, get rid of this, get rid of that. Let's destroy evidence."
Oh, the coroner or the medical examiner was like 30 years old. Like they didn't want him to be to say the cause of death because he was like barely certified or whatever. And he came out and he didn't know what the hell he was doing at all. So it's the worst investigation I ever saw. And I'll say this for Kurt Cobain, we are going to bring him justice. We are. I am. I know how to do it. I did it on OJ. I did it on Natalie Wood. I'll do it on Cobain. Not today, but I'm saying eventually this guy has had his name dragged through the mud for 30 years. He had a daughter. You're slandering his name.
Right.
And even like Grohl, Novoselic, and Charles Peterson, and the people who say, "Well, Kurt killed himself." Stop saying that.
Right.
Stop saying it.
Right.
Okay? He got murdered
in a heartbeat. I'll do that with you. Believe me, I'm going to be doing a docu series.
No, we'll keep talking, bro. No, bro, dude. We'll keep talking. I'm not ready to do it yet because I can't based on some sources. It's a dangerous situation, but I'm down to fucking definitely talk to you about it on tape.
Yeah, because as you come to learn more about me, I'm the guy that I just run through the door. I got to know, and I don't care what happens to the outcome. I want to know. That's just always been my approach.
Bro, I'm down, bro. Look, the Cobain thing's new to me. I only got involved about 3-4 months ago. It's been blowing my mind. I've had trouble sleeping. It's very disturbing. I actually feel bad. I wasn't a huge Kurt Cobain fan. I wasn't. I was actually an Eddie Vedder guy. I was a Pearl Jam guy. I was a
Pantera guy, but because Cobain was in my era, it took a direct impact. You know what I mean? So.
Oh no! Look, Cobain. Freaking the video Teen Spirit, his music video, bro. That's like one of the most iconic MTV videos ever.
Yeah, I mean they retired. Let's use a better word. They destroyed hair bands. Flat out destroyed them.
That was an interesting. You know what? I like the point you're bringing up. I read about that. Right. Like the Warrants and the White Lions and the Motley Crue. You're right.
They were done after that.
Everything switched to the grunge. I don't even think they liked the word grunge, right? That was like a mainstream kind of stereotype to tell them. They really were kind of like rock meets punk.
Right.
Almost in a way, and heavy metal. Right. So, but you're absolutely right. It destroyed a genre.
I got to tell you too, man, there's a lot of these people in that industry, these musicians that were close to Cobain that were not pleased with him because his music was literally putting them on backburn permanently.
Yeah.
So,
the last time Kurt saw Chris Novoselic, he punched him in the face.
Yeah.
And he was trying to drive him to rehab. Like this for the second time or the first time, and then Kurt went the next day, and Chris Novoselic went back and said, "Fuck that guy, man! I'm done with him." Nirvana was done, man. They were done.
All these cases that we speak about.
He quit Lollapalooza. He backed out of Lollapalooza. He quit the European tour halfway through. Dude, these guys were going to make millions of dollars for Gold Mountain, Geffen Records. They had that intervention with Kurt. Like, you need to stop. And he knew it was about the money. They didn't care about him. He controlled, bro, he was almost like John Lennon of fucking heavy rock.
Yeah.
Because if you look at his songs, bro, that guy was a composer, a songwriter. His songs were so good.
Well, what made him great is he dared to be different. That's what made him great.
I'm just saying, bro, as a composer and as a musician, the guy was a genius, okay? He really was. In the lyrics and the music and the melodies and all the shit he did was like, he was a fan of the Beatles. And people didn't like to say that. He used to say he loved the Beatles.
Yep.
Like, and if you really look, his stuff was kind of mainstream. Almost like Weezer. You know, Weezer's kind of like heavy, but then it's kind of poppy. You know what I mean?
They're a funny group. They had the chance to become really big rock stars, and then the singer's like, I want to go back to Harvard. And he did. Yeah. And he did. He got his degree.
I mean, yeah, I just, it's sad with Kurt, but we are going to bring justice to Kurt. I'm not okay with, and for me, I like to kind of go against Hollywood and the mainstream media. And every day I see a Nirvana shirt on now. I don't know why. Now I see it everywhere. And this guy deserves justice, man. I'm not cool with people saying like, oh yeah, he killed himself. So I'd be honored to do something with you, eventually. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's move on. That's something we're definitely talking about. But just to put in a summary, the reason we bring it up is with Cobain, John Benet Ramsey, even Scott Peterson, who I did an episode on him as well. Mm-hmm. These are blunders in law enforcement. And this is, non-professionalism being associated with this. And this goes back to the OJ case. This is why when people are like, well, what these tapes exist, why don't they bring it to the public? Or why doesn't the LAPD? The answer is simple. They want nothing to do with it. They made a huge mistake. They'd rather not remember it.
And just like Cobain, when I actually had a conversation with the Seattle detective who was very close to the cold case unit, the guy laughed at me and became a rude asshole immediately.
Yep.
Because I said, you see the Tupac thing, what's going on in Vegas? I said, what if I told you could do that in Seattle? He's like, well, what are you talking about? I'm like, chill out, bro. Like, I'm going to solve the most famous cold case in your history. And he wanted nothing to do with it.
It's going to take it's going to take people like us to get to the bottom of that, period.
Yeah, you do like a podcast. You say the truth. You reveal the killer's names. You reveal the witnesses. And I don't even say Courtney Love. To be honest, I don't. I never accuse her. I'm not going to accuse her. She was in LA. She wasn't there.
I know she was she was definitely an instrument in it, but she wasn't directly associated. I mean, she had influence over a lot of the people that were around him during this. Correct. You know what I mean? So, correct.
Yeah. I mean, who inherits all his music rights when he dies?
Right.
She does.
Right. And
it's
a debauchery. I mean, the whole thing's crazy, and
I'll tell you this right now, bro. Okay. I did Natalie Wood, OJ, Emmett Till, Aaron Hernandez. I have like 5 civilian cases. I did Delphi. I'm telling you right now, this Cobain thing, it might be the craziest one I've ever seen, ever. Even bigger. It's almost different than OJ in a way because there's 7 fucking people there.
That's got my interest, man. I got to tell you, after I did the Cobain episode, I titled that episode "Soaked in Doubt." Even after doing that, because I did it with a homicide detective, a very well-known one, with a crime writer and a criminal psychologist. And we made great points. But I remember afterward, I was like, "There's so much more I wanted to say," And I had to be a polite individual in certain respects. But when it comes to it, and eventually, again, I'm going to be out there with a camera getting in faces. I'm like a bulldog in like a glass shop, man. I cannot help myself.
Oh, really?
Dig. Yeah.
That's how I am, bro. Yeah. It's funny.
I'm like, so I'm going to do a simultaneous thing with documentary, both law enforcement and one with ufology and, then paranormal. Cause there's been some instances I'll talk to you off podcast about it, but long story short, I go somewhere, it's alleged to be a paranormal hotspot. And the guy that's running the tours like, stay here, don't go out of this blah, blah, blah boundaries. And whatever it was in the distance, I run over there because I don't give a shit. I got to see it. You know what I mean? It's not good enough for me to see something at a distance.
Bro, someday we should do the Alien Dulce, Phil Snyder, fucking, you know that story?
Yes.
Absolutely. That's my new, I'm going to tell you right now, that's my new obsession. I don't get into the UFO. I'm more true crime, children, murders, like, you know, celebrities. But dude, I've been watching all the Phil Snyder. I watched The Underground, his movie by his wife or daughter. Bro, that is the next frontier of Alien, is if that shit is actually real at Dulce in 1979. That's the best story.
Listen, that's something you and I after podcast, we got to schedule that, because I'll tell you, man, if there's any case that has, you know, the allure of aliens and then definitely a staged suicide, undoubtedly that's the case.
He's murdered.
100% he is, dude. 100% he is. There's no way.
His friend got murdered like 2 weeks before that, right? The other guy, yeah. And
when you read this, these are facts that you could find in public record. And for anyone to say or even consider the idea that it made, oh, well, you know, it's suicide, that's horseshit. Watch it. If you really read the details in that, it's mind-blowing.
No. Well, you look, guys like Bob Lazar. I love Bob Lazar. Yeah. I don't know if I fully believe him, but I do. I like Jeremy Corbell. I like Bob Lazar. I love Phil Schneider. Philip Corso was one, right? And then you had Bill Cooper, right?
Right.
There were these guys that, look, there's a lot there, man. I got another guy. He deals with the alien taped interview that they aired. I don't know if you ever saw that. The interview with the alien.
And they ripped it off YouTube. Yeah, you can only get.
I know the guy that
you can only get bites of that now. There's that whole thing's gone. There's only bites out there.
Oh! When they did that on WGN or National Geographic or somebody.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. They shredded that down to bites. Like you can't get like, and even when you see like an hour-long video, I promise you, I assure you, it's going to be mostly people, you know, some jargon and small clips.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, but anyway, dude, someday Shasta. I know a lot about Shasta. That place is magic.
Chris, I got to tell you, it sounds like we got a lot of shit planned for each other here in the future.
Because we both have the similar mind where we're like, truth. We don't like cover-ups.
Right.
We don't like being told something. Cobain was murdered. OJ didn't do it. You know, like, and you see how the society, like, keeps it going and going and going. And you're just like, dude, do you guys want to know the truth?
I mean,
like, why are you doing disinformation?
I came to the conclusion at some level, there's money to be made on it. I mean, just like look at the content we're doing today. But at the level of like corporate, and when you get to these TV shows and these networks,
it's entertainment to them,
and they're gonna milk that thing to the very last moment.
How do you think Norman Pardo and Bill Deere became almost household names? And good for them. Look, like I said, I'm not going to bash them today. Right. Good for them. I'm looking at Bill Deere's book right now. I can see it. It's 500 pages. Okay. Norman Pardo is known. Bill Deere's known because people like the entertainment idea of like, maybe OJ didn't do it. Or maybe Jason did it. Oh, did Glenn Rogers do it? What about Dodi Fayed? Like they say, and people look, not everyone's going to appeal to every single person in the populace. They appeal to a certain group of people. And you're right. They can make a book and do a movie and they make money. And there's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
You know?
Well, let's eliminate Jason Simpson. I'll tell you why. He is hair triggered. There is no calculation in his mindset. There's no shot he did it. That guy,
he was at work.
Yeah, not even that. But he'd be, let's say hypothetically, they can't account for his whereabouts on the questionable day of. He is a loose cannon. He would have been caught long ago. Like that, there's no doubt that guy would have been caught. He is out of his mind with the way he behaves. Like when OJ showed up to the house and he rushed the car, he's at a press conference and he threw something at one of the people in the press.
Oh yeah, he was unhinged. Yeah, they showed he did something at the statue, OJ statue. He like graffitied it like when he was younger.
Yeah,
in the backyard at Rockingham.
There's no chance that guy would have went all this time without being exposed.
That's a good point. You're right. If he fucking did it, he would have figured it out.
Oh,
and then like, yeah, exactly.
He probably would have been. He would have been with the detectives and someone from Hollywood trying to write his own movie because that's just he doesn't have a filter, you know.
He should have sued Bill Deere and Discovery ID when they did OJ is innocent. He should have sued them. That was his easy payday. I guess he didn't. I guess he didn't want to because he basically wanted to stick up for his dad.
Right.
And it took the vision off of OJ. Bro, he had a defamation case, defamation by implication. Absolutely. That whole series, he could have went to Discovery ID and said, "You don't give me $20 million right now, or even like couple mil, right? He's not going to get 20. But if he said like, you give me $2 million right now for me to go away, if not, I'll sue you for $150 million right now." Like,
I mean, probably
he did it.
Yeah. I mean, but the point here's with that. When I watched that on Discovery, you know, it is when you watch something and you could tell it's scripted 100%. They've already thought this through. It's a story. I was so unsold that they, in fact, helped me. They inclined me to not even think about OJ for a long time after that.
Dude, they pulled out that knife. It was a double-edged blade. OJ had a single edge. It's not a double edge.
Right.
Charlie has a double edge. The knife is way too big. It's two edges when most of the wounds, 80% of the wounds are single edged.
Right.
All of Nicole's are pretty much single edged, they think too.
And even and real quick,
he didn't even have the right knife. He doesn't even know what,
right.
He's not even like paying attention to the fucking autopsies.
And if you really, if you look into it, those wounds that look like they may be double edged are basically just double stab wounds from the same weapon. You know, if you have a slicing motion, if you cut somebody's throat, you can't tell if it's single edge or double edge. Right.
If you slice anybody, you can't tell.
But the punctures,
straight stab wound.
Right. The punctures, because there's a couple of questionable punctures in Ron where they were alleging it was a double edge, but a forensic expert shot that down real fast.
Well, I'll tell you this. Through my whole investigation, I always tell people this. There's 2 wounds on Ron Goldman that I can prove are double edged. There's 2. There's not 10. There's not 15. There's 2.
Huh.
So, yeah. And I don't want to go into the whole thing because, you know, I respect you and I don't like to catch people off guard where they're like, well, what do you mean? Then I got to explain how knife wounds work and like.
Well, even then, I like to learn new things. I'm not one of these people like if I'm wrong about something, I'm like, oh, well, no, I'm going to defend it.
No, I understand.
If I'm wrong, I'm going to own that shit and I'm going to learn. I got to learn.
I'm just saying there's not enough time in the day to go over like.
I got you. So before we wrap up, tell people about books or anything that any media they want. I'll put it in description as well. Let everyone know where they can find your information and your stuff.
I mean, you can do what you want. I don't promote my stuff. If people write me, I give them a free copy of my book. I wrote a book called Ron's Revenge. It's on Amazon. If you just search Ron's Revenge by Chris Todd, I give it away for free. I don't charge people. So if they email me at investigatorla19@gmail.com, investigatorla19, the numbers at gmail.com, or hopscotchfree101@gmail. I will show you evidence. I talk to you. I'll jump on the phone with you. I'm on social media. Yes, you can find me. My phone number is online. I take phone calls from anybody. I am the anti-Hollywood. So if you want to talk to me, I am all ears. If you come with the bullshit, I'm just going to block you. But if you want to have a respectful conversation, right? So that's how they find me. Just Google Chris Todd, O.J. Simpson. You'll see my other cases at Cinemills TV. And I just came out with The Connect and Redacted. So thank you to those guys so much for that. And so I'm easy to find for sure.
Perfect. So I'm going to talk to Chris in post. Any of you listening, we're going to say good day, good evening, good night, or whatever it is for you. Now talk to Chris in post.
Thank you very much.